So our topic is playing offense through financial empowerment. Empowerment of people is a topic of a lot of conversation in many arenas. So let's talk a little bit about what I'd like to ask the panelists. I'm going to start with Dave off to the far left here about tell us what you think empowerment looks like for students. And not only attributes, but maybe some examples of how an empowered student behaves as opposed to otherwise.
Sure. We've given this a lot of thought. First off, I work with Federal Student Aid, the Department of Education, and we are very focused on student financial empowerment and have a program that we're working through. So that concept, when we think about it, you know, we have kind of a tagline that we use, know before you owe. And so under that premise, it's about what you know. And if you think about a successful loan repayment and a successful educational career coming out to a successful professional career, know your interest, number one. Know where you think that interest will go in the terms of a career. Know exactly what schools may be offering that career curriculum. Know what it's going to cost, right? And know then, once you know what it's going to cost, know what your free options are before you get into your costly options. And certainly around debt, it's that's one of the more costly options. So, and then once you have the debt, if you require the debt, have to go into debt for your education, know what you're obligating yourself to, and know then also that FSA or Federal Student Aid is there to help. And we have a lot of programs, a lot of initiatives. Products, services, and we continually expand those products and services to help people through whatever repayment challenges they have. So I think that's one of the most important things. About items 1 through 4 that I just mentioned, the panel here, I'm working with several, they are experts in that piece. What we're experts in is funding and getting people that opportunity through our funding. But there are, that empowerment piece is important because if they do all of those things correctly, then what does that person look like in the future? They've successfully repaid their loan, and they're out in their career and they move beyond what many people are now caught in terms of a debt cycle.
Joy, you have a perspective of the biggest higher education marketplace in the country by far. So give us the perspective from the state we sit in right now.
So think of the California community colleges as a loosely tied confederation of 116 colleges and 72 distinct boards. Imagine trying to get one board to do what you want. 2, 4, 8, 12, right? 70? 2, so, or maybe 3 even. So I think what's exciting for us is this opportunity to speak to that story. With Dave saying an empowered student knows what they want and knows how to go after it, what colleges will support them. California has the California Promise. There's a tuition waiver, but we also don't tell people they can still qualify for a Pell Grant. There's a lot we can be telling, and they can get free things, dual enrollment. High school, that could be free. They get a bump up into. So I think for us, I think part of it is telling that story, but also as so many people in California have gone to the colleges, and we don't tell that story either. Amy Tan, Brett Favre. No, that's the wrong guy. I'm just making sure you're paying attention. That guy, Aaron Rodgers from Butte. But they're Annette Bening. There's so many of these people who would not be where they are had they not had their start at the college. And so empowerment also to me seems like, who can I be inspired by, but then who can I inspire? Who can I talk to say, take that class with me, right? And so I think there's just a range of things we're hoping to do together, and I'm just really honored to be on this panel to talk about some of the better ways to do that. Because an empowered student is also an empowered citizen. And so if we want community change for the good, for everyone's good, all of us together, we're in this together. If you don't do well, then I don't do well. So if we haven't said that story too, then we're really missing the opportunity.
Well, Ed has seen that on the ground level in leading the implementation of one of the, that I've been lucky enough to actually see on the ground level, one of the most fascinating programs to get young students ready for this pathway. Give us your take on that, Ed.
Well, thanks, Mike. And I love the idea of dual enrollment, and it should be more than an idea, and the opportunities that students have to start taking these college courses in high school, and then having the access to the amazing tools that the federal student aid has created for our students to be able to learn how to manage their money and understand what's available to them. And at the beginning of the pipeline, at the beginning of the process, is a vision about developing happy kids living in healthy relationships on a path to gainful employment. And that's work that needs to begin early. It's about building vocational identity. It's about helping students discover their interests, as Dave mentioned, and doing it in a systemic way. And so for us, through the World of Work initiative, it really is a hack on the current model in the school system, which sees most kids getting a tiny little dosage of career development through their counselors, if then. And so for us, the hack is really bringing career development, vocational psychology into the classroom, supporting the teachers with learning how to be able to do this work and integrating their core content areas, not as another thing, but as part of the thing. It's part of the instructional core. And that's something that Cajon Valley has been able to do now in our 5th year of doing this work. We're seeing this trend, and you saw some of that perhaps on Monday, if you saw our kids, and some of you did, that our kids can speak the language of career. And when one of the comments that I heard was from one of the visitors said, I was speaking to a middle schooler, but they were speaking to me in a language that was 5 grades beyond where they currently are. And this is a Title I school, middle school. And the reason they're able to do it is because we provided them the language to be able to have a career conversation with adult. And for us, it is the language of Holland, it's the language of the RIASEC. It's the most researched of all vocational typologies. Our teachers are becoming masters in using it. It's happening in the classroom, and it's happening for every child, every grade, and every year.
Well, this is my 4th ASU+GSV summit, and so now I get the opportunity to ask everyone coming to these things the first time has to figure out a mentor somewhere. So one of my ASU+GSV mentors is Chris Mackey. Let's give us your take on all this.
Okay, so I'm Chris Mackey with SkillsLine. SkillsLine uses micro lessons to teach employability skills supported by SEL. These are the skills that employers call soft skills, and they're generally not explicitly taught, right? So I was thinking a lot about what Dave said around the incredible tools that FSA offers, the RIASEC assessment, which helps align interests or one's interests with one's pathways. And then I thought about everything that a person could learn: budgeting, taxes, credit card, ROI on education leading to a career, how to make those informed and intentional decisions, right? But how do we spur action, right? That seems like financial literacy, and that seems like we're literate in all these financial concepts. But really, if we take that up another level to financial empowerment, for me, that becomes self-agency, believing that my actions, believing that I learn these concepts will lead to an outcome, right? And making those informed, intentional decisions, but then actually acting on them, following through with them. And for me, it's really that focus on student agency, helping students understand that their actions in the world will lead to real results and that their lives matter through those actions. So that's what I would say.
Well, I'll get to answer the question. I'll throw in my answer to the question last. I actually just have a vision that I see as we get to a world in which you see a group of, we're just picking on high school students. This could be people of any age who are thinking about a post-secondary education program. I'm seeing high school students having a really engaged conversation about what they're going to do, after high school, about where they're going to go after high school, and all those sorts of things. And you never hear them once raise an issue of cost and affordability, because they've learned before they got to this conversation that they no more have to think about it than they had to think about paying for high school. David?
Can I roll it back even beyond high school and maybe middle school, having that conversation, and maybe someday, maybe, into elementary school? Because, the Department of Education has made a decision to take on a earlier role. We have a role to play. We recognize that. And we're taking on that role much earlier in the process than we ever did before. That's a conscious decision because we don't underwrite really the loans that we bring in. So what's the best way to help our customers be successful? Well, it's through education of all of these programs and teaching them at a younger age, because by the time, what we've seen, and we've done many voice of the customer studies, and it's a very consistent thing that comes back to us is, well, I didn't know, I didn't understand. You could put whatever you want right behind that, but there's many things. And so we have taken a personal accountability for making sure that it's not, we're making the tools available, we're making the programs available, we're making the money available. FSA has for as long continued to expand access, and we're doing it still to this day. But what we've recognized is it's the outreach that is really, really important, and everybody here is really taking those steps. And so what we can be is an enabler, a supporter of those efforts, and that's where we.
Right. Well, Washington adopted, like many states, a strategic plan or strategic framework around how to increase educational attainment. It's got the usual suspects in there like affordability, enrollment, completion, et cetera. But we also adopted a series of values that would wrap around our work. One is, our number one is equity, which I think everybody gets. Our next two are to be student-centered in everything that we do, and the third is to recognize relentlessly that this is about pathways, right? So Chris, everyone's here is touching on this, and I'm gonna, and Chris talked about it, but I'm gonna throw it at Ed to talk about the buzzword behind this is navigation, right? And we too often think of navigation on the very end of the. But let's talk a little bit about what that means to help students at the earliest age possible develop the skills to navigate with agency. Despite all the supports they're going to have, they're still going to have to. They're a key player in this.
Well, as some of you heard me say, this the self that a person makes themselves into is a function of language. If you don't have a word for it, you don't have it. We give students the language to understand who they are and learn how to navigate that process. A perfect example is through our Launchpad Career Centers, where students actually get the opportunity to participate in 11 missions where they begin to reflect on the language of their interests, the RIASEC in particular, but then they also get to connect with our labor market information, our LMI, information that our community colleges are using, understanding this language of priority sectors. So I'm not just thinking about any job, I'm starting to think about what are the careers in my community. There's 8 priority sectors. And now our workforce board, our wonderful workforce board, is aligning the priority sectors to the RIASEC as well. So now all of a sudden you have a student who understands these are my interests. I understand what priority sectors are. These are the places I should be thinking about for my career path. I understand where they are in my community because I can see it on the map. That's part of the Launchpad Career Center. There's a beautiful map there that, although some of our students have never seen the ocean, although it's only 15 miles away, they can see on this map where the employers are right in their community that align to their interest themes. So we're giving them the information so they can put they're smart.
Yeah.
These kids are so smart.
And they want to do that.
They want to do it.
We haven't-
No one's talked to them about it. It's like...
We're making all these assumptions about them, like, oh, they're lazy, they're not like us. Oh, kids these days, matter with these kids these days. It's like, come on, no. They want the info, and they're hustlers. Like, I mean, they want to hustle. I know kids want to do stuff. I'm sorry.
No, we don't have to teach them grit. Our kids, we don't have to teach them grit and determination. The fact that they make it to school every day in the highest poverty school district, and already they make it every day to school. They come to school.
Right.
Now we just need to give them the information. But let's realize, we don't teach this. Our schools don't do this.
Right.
This is not a priority in school.
Well, I think, oh, sorry.
Joy, no, I was going to say, Joy, because your portfolio in the system has some of the biggest labor markets, retail, hospitality, tourism, any place in the country.
Oh, yeah.
There's more people in that field than almost anywhere else
It's
by
one of
sector.
the biggest contributors to why California has an education system, if you think about it. But I will say this, how many of you, raise your hand, one of your first jobs was in retail, hospitality, and tourism? When you were young, your first W-2? How many of you are in it now? Gee, it's so, yeah. If you're in events, yeah. Too bad those were dead-end jobs you guys are in. That's the lie, right? These are, too bad you didn't learn the skills to be able to be, agent of force in your world. That is such a bunch of BS. All of these things are, we think of health sector, we think doctor, nurse. When I say retail, hospitality, tourism, I was like dishwasher, waitress. There's so much to it, and it's flexible. But I think that picture painting, as you said, not just the employers, but also what does it look like to have that job? What is good about it? I had one of my cousins wanted to go. She's like, I want to be a pediatrician, but my parents say that pharmacy tech is the way I should go, and I'll make good money. And I was like, do you want to stand behind a counter for the rest of your life? If that's what you want, perfect. Do that. But if you want to be a pediatrician, please do that. We will find a way. But it's almost like they check out of what they think they can't do because of the numbers, or they don't see themselves as being able to do it. And that's the other part of the story, is that it is possible. But if it seems impossible, we're not going to try to scale Everest, right? Or in our analogy here, we're not going to try to make a touchdown. We're going to be like, I'm just going to stay on the sidelines. That's not for me. Right?
Yeah, they don't even know those opportunities exist, right? I mean, they're not even aware of all the things that they can achieve, right? They've not seen it in people they know. They haven't gotten from their parents, and I think it's our obligation to get that early awareness in middle school when they're starting to make the decisions to drop out. Get them to understand there is a place for them in this world. I agree.
What is that? I've seen it in a couple of your videos. How do you know about a career? Yeah, no, you tell it.
How does a child aspire to a career they don't know exists?
Well, and back to the community colleges, there's so much free non-credit stuff. We haven't told their families how they can upskill themselves. So how do we expect anyone, enrollments are dropping. We suck at telling the story of why they should come to ours.
And Chris, give us a perspective on, because when I've started to talk to people from my role, trying to cover a state nowhere near the size of your state, but still a pretty big state compared to where I came from, is we're all about scale. We have to achieve scale, or we don't achieve population level results for a state, right? So one of the things you can achieve scale with, of course, is digital platforms, right? And like anything, some things work, some things don't, right? But and when I talk about digital platforms and some of this work around increasing, student agency, people my age right away go, well, soft skills, that's all, person to person. But we know there's a different generation out here than people who look like me, and when I say it to my daughters, it's like, oh, they kind of get what I might be talking about. So you give us an insider's perspective on that.
So if I think about my experience with educational technology, it's always been about making it easy to use, making it quick, making it accessible, and making it valuable for both student and teacher, right? With SkillsLine in particular, and the environment that we see now where states are putting down new mandates around career readiness, around employability skills, around social emotional learning, we can't ask the educational system to pivot on a dime and start teaching that, right? How could a teacher learn a whole new curriculum? They look at those binders and they just about throw up their hands and want to quit, right? That's been going on for the last year for sure. So my learnings over time have been around educational technology is you use that to teach the skills, use the platform to get students to reflect, and then you use in-classroom time to have teachers drive discussion, build relationships with students, right? Not teach a new curriculum and that they're not familiar with, rather have students learn the language of essential skills, career readiness, employability, social emotional learning, learn strategies, mindsets, and then have the teachers reinforce those over time, over the year that they have with those students.
Be interesting to throw it to Dave. So you have a portfolio within FSA, the Federal Student Aid, operating on innovation, right? So like many people have been around the federal government for a long time, and around Department of Education, I thought of FSA as kind of like another big SSA in DC, not in DC, but in Baltimore, Social Security Administration, which you think of as just grinding out the whole processes. And innovation, where does that fit? So tell us where your folks are trying to fit it into FSA.
That's a great question. So the Strategy and Innovation Office itself is really only, I want to say, 2.5 to 3 years old. And it was really developed around a concept that we call Next Gen. And Next Gen was really just a complete modernization of all of our systems, all of our processes. But what the most profound impact that it's had is it's made us look at our business model. And so it's not just getting the money out. It's about having processes and a model in place that says, well, what do the outcomes look like? And so in the course of that, obviously there has to be innovation. When you're looking at modernizing systems, you're modernizing process, and you're trying to tie all that together in what has been a very long-term stayed and stable environment and a way of doing business. It takes some movement, and it takes some ideas, and it takes some courage on the legacy FSA employees' part, right, because they've done things a certain way for so many years that's what seems right, and so we're asking them to change a little bit, and they're doing a phenomenal job. We had 20 different features released over the last 18 months on our Next Gen, what we call DCC, Digital Customer Care Portal. It's a digital front door to FSA. We've consolidated several different websites into one that is now studentaid.gov. We're continuing to have releases. That was the snap.
That was good. No, it wasn't be snappy.
Oh, that's a plug.
We have our beatnik roots here.
Yeah.
I do too.
But so Joy, I spent a few years as the number 2 person in the system with 21 colleges and universities in it. You've got more than 100, right? How do you do innovation, and how does it connect up to a fellow massive player like the federal government, right?
Can I pass? I should say,
you have a great reputation in your system.
Yeah, this is being taken. There's innovation happening in many pockets. It's an unwieldy thing at the state level, as you know, and I think what I've found anyway is it's kind of like, if we're playing offense, if I'm a small team and I'm against a big team, we're going to find ways to win with that, right? So I will just say that there are these amazing pockets. San Diego is one area, another one, great workforce partnership, 10 colleges. Inland Empire is another area where, just let me give you one quick example. We piloted a virtual marketing internship that's 6 weeks long, partnered with the SBDC, because the president of Copper Mountain College, the smallest in our system, right by Joshua Tree, Yucca Valley, 29 Palms, said, Joy, I need to support my retail, hospitality, tourism businesses, which have been suffering in the last year. What can we do? And I said, well, we've built this social media digital marketing skill set. Can we marry them? So we handpicked a group of businesses and as well helped the college. It's their foundation, their PR group. And we did this pilot, 6-week internship. 2 people already got full-time employment the day after the internship. One said he got an interview just because he had that internship as his thing on his resume that he was doing. We're partnered with LinkedIn Learning to make that a digital badge that the kids, let's talk. We'll just provide that for you. But this is strong workforce money that we have in the state that was built around putting these kinds of things. So this isn't curriculum. We don't call it curriculum because once we go there, it'll be 50 years. Sorry, it'll take a while, but if we have content that's usable and it's vetted by industry, so it was all built by subject matter experts, people who were social media or are. Anyway, I should say that the pilot of 7 students is growing to 40 in this fall, so in 4 weeks we will launch spread to 4 more colleges. But so where we we don't push boulders uphill, I will say, but where we immediately see that the college is willing to innovate, and then we can roll. And that's actually one thing we're hoping to do more of.
Yeah, that's right. I was just going to say, it seems like in our experience, I mean, we've worked with FSA for quite some time, and we've noticed that FSA seems to create more feedback loops with operators on the ground, educators on the ground. Cajon Valley, right? Joy, retail, hospitality, tourism here. So that's been, I think government has more of an appetite to innovate and not only invest in solutions that are fully baked, fully vetted. They're willing to go beyond, buying IBM, right? So even on the state level, we see that too. So we have different proposals where we're working in Louisiana with the adult education program, Work Ready U, and we're co-creating with them, right? We have different ideas. They come to us with more information from the ground. We innovate and create. Indiana, for example, is interested in trying new things, right? It's a brand new world out there, and I think government's starting to realize that they have to think differently, and they have to take on these more innovative, iterative approaches to developing programs. Don't do it from the top down, do it from the bottom up. So Washington State the same,
yeah,
right?
and I think, Joy, you kind of nailed it on what innovation is, even though you wanted to pass for a minute, because as I've tried to get my head around it, which is hard in really established worlds, organizations, systems, whatever you want to call it, it's this understanding of you're going to have some people in your network who are going to innovate from the ground up, and you've got some fascinating things going on, in the state, in your world. But then you're kind of moving the thinking around, you're seeding conversations, you're resourcing the less established nodes of the network, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that was a beautiful story of exactly the role that you play. But I think to some extent it's become more secondhand, because your system is recognized nationwide as being a more, very adaptive and innovative in this world, So,
well, I was going to say, and this is one sector of 12, really, if you think of their 10 priority, and health and all that. But I think I appreciate what you're saying, because I think we are trying to be nimble, and I'm impressed by how FSA has managed to make those leaps, because then we can line up to those, right? But that's gargantuan. Snaps again. I want to be, that's the thing I will say that I'm an instructor as well. And one of the things I say is, how many times have you ever gone home and had too much negative feedback? Ever had a day like that? Maybe not today, but okay. And have you ever gone home when you had too much positive feedback? You feel like, oh, everyone thinks I'm so able. I'm such an agent for my own change. No, we never do that. So and whose fault is that? Do I do that for other people? Have I ever sent anyone home with too much praise? No. So how do we do that with our students so they feed that and model that, and they feel good about all those things you're doing? And I heard parents saying, "I'm learning from what my kids are telling me." That's where we start to see some change, I think.
Definitely. Well, and in working with Chris has been really important, because he helped us launch our 2-gen strategy. Right to that point. So. It's one thing to help children develop a vision of their future possible selves, but they really need their parents. And we often think about, if the parent doesn't have a view of their future hoped for possible self, how do we expect them to have that vision for their child? So when we can do it in a 2-gen strategy format, all the better, all the stronger, all the more powerful. And then when we can help the parents connect to the tools that they need to be aware of so that they can actually help those dreams come true, then we're really driving a full benefit to that family and to that child. So.
And we look at our applications and we see the completion rates, right? It's something we watch very closely. And it's become clear to us that the parents that are involved, when parents are involved, it happens to get done a little bit more, quite a bit more. So fostering that at an early age, through middle school, through high school. Because if you started as a junior, you started as a senior, it really is too late. It's a stab in the dark at that point.
You've got to create informed consumers in the parents, right? Right from the start, and help them have those conversations. They don't even know how to have those conversations in many cases.
I have twins who are juniors in college right now. So, but I remember, how when you wanted to learn you wanted to get your driver's license, because that represented independence. And you have to pass a test, and you have to prepare. hello, why? This is economic independence we're talking about here. Maybe if we took that much time to, I don't know, maybe it's like a career license. Back in when I'm age 6, I'm learning that is the goal. But they have
And I think we're talking about student self-agency, and now we're talking about parent self-agency, and they're a big influencer. And I'm trying not to remember the issues I had with my father, who tried to teach me how to drive when I was 16, and he's a former Navy pilot. So I'm like, what? But but that's a real challenge, because one of the things that sometimes we think we tend to think in our work that it's an information gap problem, that if we just fill it with a brochure or a message or something, maybe make it more social media friendly, that solves it. But it's really much deeper behavioral, and that's what self-agency is all about, right? So, I want to see, what are there other populations that you've been encountering? We've had some growing issues about whether or not high school teachers as a group understand this world enough to realize how doable it is for low-income families in our state, raised by people within the K-12 world, right?
Right. Yeah, no, that's actually the one of the gaps you've mentioned is there is no guidance, right? I mean, counselors, as we know, just have barely enough time to get people through the A through G requirements or whatever it is, and there's no real guidance.
When I first got to Cajon Valley, it was somewhere along the way, and we have our careers grid. It's the RIASEC, and it's the 54 careers. It's K to 8 and K-12, and there was a teacher that said, "Who chose these careers? These aren't careers for our kids." I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "Well, who chose the careers for this grid? Like, these aren't things that our kids can't do this." I'm like, my brain could not even process that state, but it helped me understand how far we had to go to actually help our teachers understand, some of the things that they haven't had, unfortunately, the exposure to understanding this world of work. And like Dr. Miyashiro says all the time, I've been an educator my whole life. I've never been out in private industry. I don't really understand how that other world works. So you stepping in and helping us understand how this world works has been really important to our teachers to understand. And now they can see that this is actually possible for our students. All students.
Along those, sorry.
No, go ahead, Joy.
You, and then I'll remember.
Okay, well, all I was going to say is one of the trends that we're really excited about is the movement towards giving currency to the high school degree, right? I mean, getting a certificate, being ready for work, right? And it really gets us students in the mindset of lifelong learning, right? And I think, FSA is thinking a lot about not just early awareness, but parent awareness, because they're lifelong learners too, and they're going to want to upskill and take advantage of all the great products that FSA offers. So
Definitely seen a shift in our borrower base, our customer base. Yes, 17 and 18-year-olds are the majority coming through, but we're seeing many over 25, which means that they're coming back into the education environment. And so, yeah, very, very good point.
The average age of our student is 30. And so it's really not, it's who you're talking, that's who we need to talk to and how, why. I was just going to say there's also a teacher shortage, right? So if you, I volunteer in this other group where we're trying to figure out this teacher shortage thing, and there's an issue around that in California because you can't have education as a major, blah, 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 blah. So talk about boulder uphill. But to your point about educating the current teachers on how we can help, there's a new opportunity for us to teach new teachers and have that whole, they've worked in the world. I mean, my kids had a great AP calculus teacher. She came from Hewlett-Packard. She wanted to use her great math skills at a place where she felt like she could change lives. That is someone who does understand the sector world and can bring, tours or whatever, but it needs to be not it needs to be one of those things that is part of the language they learn too. And I think what you're talking about really resonates.
And I think years ago, I ran a program, not directly, but within an organization I ran, which was an alternative route to certification for school teachers, and it was all for career changers. And I know, I don't know whether Ed ever got a certificate to teach, but Ed comes from the business world. I know that, and the value that people like you bring into the school environment is enormous in helping to change the whole organizational expectations. Right?
The first year I was in the district, I would ask all the teachers, send me a LinkedIn. Like, let's get hooked up with LinkedIn, right?
Don't even
You know what's
get me
coming?
started on
You know
that.
what's coming, right?
Yeah. What's
LinkedIn? I'm just a teacher. I don't have a LinkedIn.
Oh, academics are the worst.
What just happened? What just happened?
Yeah. No, that's actually on the internship that we just did. That was the first thing. Because even these young folks, LinkedIn's for old people. It's like LinkedIn has more jobs than Indeed. Would you like a job? Let's get on LinkedIn.
I will say from our perspective, and maybe this is too close to the vest, is LinkedIn is our main marketing tool, right? We find teachers that are aligned with career readiness, that want to help their students, be career ready. So I think that's shifting quite a bit.
We got a few minutes left. I'm going to bail on my responsibilities. Do you guys have any topics that you wanted to throw out and you want to talk about that I haven't raised yet?
I'll talk about a few of the tools so the audience gets an idea of what we're talking about. We have a loan simulator tool. We have a college scorecard. We have actually what we call a FAFSA forecaster that's being actually replaced in the fall with a much broader scale product. And so, please, everybody, don't just go back home and implement it. Well, do that. Implement it and, look at those things for your own districts, but also tell people because it's outreach that's important to us now. And that's why this group is so important and that will continue to grow those connections and grow these relationships.
Yeah, I met this morning with someone whose company does sort of a front end for coming into the FAFSA system and all the rest, and they were going to do it with some KIPP schools here in California, and they came in with a mindset that it's about 12th grade, and the KIPP schools wanted them to have an engagement for 9th and 10th graders in the same kind of things you wouldn't do necessarily for real to get to 12th grade. And he was like, well, what? And the light bulb went off that it's this hands-on playing with these things is what helps people understand this actually could be free/affordable.
Right.
Joey, you look like you got to say something.
I was just going to say, there are moments when you say to yourself, we're in the right place at the right time. So I'm just feeling like that's a moment here, and that I'm really humbled and grateful, but this is going to be fun. People need this, and it's going to be exciting to see the outcomes. That part to me, I'm just moved by that, so I wanted to say that.
Yeah, and it's been building up for years, but now is the time. And I think we'll have this opportunity to help people. And I just my final topic was just joy. Joy, you are able to make things happen within the California community college system. You're pretty amazing. And we want to just thank you for working with you. So, yeah, we'll give you the snaps. So.
Now see you again. That's the next thing. Thank you.
Yeah. A reputation well earned, and to have an innovation office in FSA. Yeah, I've noticed myself in my time here at these series of these summits is that a change in the center of gravity, where it used to be a lot of possibilities that didn't seem that relevant to the behavioral front end that we're thinking about. It was more enterprise systems and online learning, just the platforms. And now everybody I talk to has and understands the behavioral angle perspective challenge that they're dealing with as well. And I think that, and the fact that they're drawing investment capital is creating a huge opportunity for us. Yeah.
And going back to Cajon Valley, creating hope.
Yeah.
We need to create hope in these students from a very early age. So
Yeah, super. Well, we have reached that magic moment where we're actually going to end about 30 seconds ahead of time. So thank you very much for being here, and appreciate our panel members for a great conversation, and to the thousands who joined us remotely.